I've started.
Perfect.
Yeah, so just again to everyone here, we'll probably get started after 10 after 6. Just give everyone enough time to join. We'll probably be going to, we'll be going until 8, and then we'll have like a little extra time for questions afterwards. All right, I think we can get started now. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the AMA CSS 08 midterm review seminar. I'm here. I'm Alex. I'm a TA for this course and a member of AMA CSS, and I'm here with Katrina. I'm going to be doing the presentation and going over some examples in Wing, and Katrina will be monitoring chat and answering the chat questions. So just before we begin, just before I want to hop right into the content, obviously, and I think you guys too. But just before we begin, I just want to say, don't be afraid to ask questions or, participate in this review seminar. I think you'll probably get the most out of it if you do. So I very much encourage participation. Like, even if you try to answer and get the question wrong, like there's nothing wrong about that. And yeah, and asking questions does not make you look stupid at all. It does not. So anyways, I know you probably want to get into the meat, so let's get started. Okay, so we have 6 main topics to cover for this review seminar. We're going to be covering built-in functions, arithmetic operators, the function design recipe, if-else statements, strings and methods, and for loops. And if there's something else you wanted us to cover that we didn't include here that's relevant, you can ask us about it after too, and we can go over it. Okay, so built-in functions. So basically, Python has functions that are already basically built into it that you can use already without having to define yourself. So we can actually go check out the documentation for these functions, right? Right here. There are a few that are particularly relevant to us. So I guess we'll go and read a few of these and just practice like looking at them and trying to interpret them. So we have the absolute value function. This basically returns the absolute value of just a number, basically. So it's important to note that if you do put a string, or not a string, a float value into this, you will get out a float value. And if you put an integer value, I think it will return an integer as well. So it basically keeps the data type of whatever is sent into it the same. So pretty basic. There's another function, round. So you might notice in the documentation, there's these little square brackets here that are sort of, different from the round brackets out here. And what this signifies is an optional argument. So essentially, you can put in an optional argument here for round. In the context of round, it will take in a number, and then you can round it up to any number of digits you'd like. Round, and we want to look at the documentation too. That's also really important because basically it rounds it up to the closest even choice if it's at 0.5. So if your decimal place is at 0.5, it will just go up to whatever the nearest even integer is. Otherwise, it works however you would expect a round function to work. But again, it is important that you look at the documentation, and that's really what I want to stress, especially because that's really important because you'll probably be getting a sheet of functions for the midterm that you will have to look at the documentation of and understand. And it's not so much, I don't stress like memorizing like every single function like you think she'll bring up. You shouldn't, Anya's said this before, you shouldn't be memorizing most stuff in this class. What I would recommend doing is just going through a few of the functions here and just practicing just reading the documentation and understanding how they work, because that is an important skill. So we'll go over a few examples. All right, so round 5.4832. So based on what we know from the round documentation, can someone tell me what do you think this built-in function will return? If anyone wants to answer. Yep, correct, great, amazing. Yes, it is 5.48 because again, you're rounding up to the second decimal place, you're considering the third spot. All right, so this one might be a little bit more tricky. Round 1,495.87 to the negative third decimal place. Does anyone know what this rounds up to? Yeah, exactly. Yep, because you're going backwards into your function. You're going -1, -2, -3, and you're just rounding 4. That goes down to 0's place. Great, good job.
Also, don't forget that it's a float, just because it returns the type that is given.
Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. That's really important too. Round will also return. Round to like absolute value will return a float. If you put a float in, returns a integer. You wouldn't be putting an integer in, but in case you do that, it will. I think it returns. Actually, no, it should return a float. But yeah. Anyways, round 3, 329.45. What does this round to? Now, again, this is where you would notice we're not using an optional argument, and typically these functions will just default to default value here. Right? Yes, correct. 329.0. Just to be clear, it is 0.0 because this function does return a float value. And again, the regular argument is just to round up to the nearest integer value. This is a float like value, but to the nearest, whole number essentially. Okay, now the minimum function. So this essentially just finds the minimum of all of these values and returns it. So
sorry,
again,
a quick clarification. Yeah, if there are no digits, this is my own fault, it is 329. So it rounds it to the nearest integer, not the nearest float.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. So just to be clear, when you don't put arguments, the second argument in for round, it will just go up to, or just return an integer. So that is 329. Now minimum, what will this function give you? Can you tell me this? Can you tell me what this returns? Yes, correct. Great. Okay, so I think we're pretty proficient right now in looking at built-in functions. But we're going to go over one more example. What does absolute value of negative 16.0 return? 0. Yeah, correct. Right? It will return a float because we have a float value in there. If we just had negative 16, it would return 16. But yeah, great. Good. And finally, tau 4, 3, and 5. What do you think this returns? Chat. Right. So that is going to return 4, right? 16 modulus 5. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the last parameter is optional. That is the modulus. That is the modulus. So power has an optional third argument where you can include the modulus. So maybe you want to consider this. So you have 4 to the power 3 right here, and maybe you want to consider it modulus 5. So modulus is just fancy mathematical lingo jingo for remainder. So you're just saying, okay, what's this number remainder 5? So when I put 5 into this and I try to get like up to 64, what remainder will I be left with? And it is 4, right? Because you get up to 60, and you try to put like another 5 in, you get 65. So the closest you can get, or the remainder, the stuff left over will be 4. There's 4 stuff left over. Yeah. I think Emmett saw this as a question. Sorry.
Yeah. I was hoping you could explain again how you got 1,000 for example 2.
Okay, yeah, of course. So when you put in the second argument for round, -3, what you're doing is you're considering, okay, instead we're going to step backwards. We're going to go -1, -2, -3, and then we're going to be here. So we're going to be rounding. We're going to be rounding this as a whole number. So you can just forget about the decimal places now because we're considering rounding at this spot. And since it's 4, this will just go down to 1000. Otherwise, it would be rounded up to 2000. So essentially, you're just rounding up to the nearest 1000, essentially. So when you're considering it this digit, right? So you're considering, okay, given this stuff right here, and I mean, technically decimal, what is the nearest thousandths? Sorry, that's difficult to pronounce. What is the nearest thousandth that is closest to this? And it's 1000 because 2000 is not as close. Sorry, does that make any sense?
All right, yeah. And if we had a 2 instead of a 3, would the answer be 1,500?
Yes, correct. It would be, yeah, that is correct.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, okay. So I think that should be all for our built-in function examples. So let us go on to the next slide. Okay, arithmetic operators. It's important to understand, order of operations, how these work. So we'll just go over a few examples. So first of all, can anyone tell me what is the difference between this division, so just the single backslash, or just a single slash, and the double slash? Yes, Joseph's son.
The first one returns a float value. The second one returns an integer value.
Correct. Amazing. Good job. Yep. I guess I should show all the questions first, but yeah. Yes. So basically, this is the first division operator is the quotient operator, and it will return the exact float value of your division. And basically, the second one with the 2 slashes, the floored quotient. So it will return basically whatever this returns. This will instead return the floored version of that. It's important to note that flooring something is not the same as rounding it. So if you have a decimal, like let's say I have like 14.95, it will just be sent down to 14. It won't be sent up to 15. So when you have a floor, you're always going down to the nearest integer. Okay, what does, now second question, we kind of spoiled this in the first exercises, but what does the symbol percent do? Yeah, remainder modular. It's the remainder, the modulus, essentially, the modulus operator. So basically what this does is it returns the remainder when you're dividing a number by another number. So I believe 1 remainder 2, 1 mod 2 is 1, I believe. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. But yeah. And finally, the order of precedence of operators. So can anyone tell me, or can anyone list out what is the order of precedence like each of these symbols would take if I was evaluating a mathematical expression in Python? Yep, correct. Yeah, correct, Vincent. That is, yep, that's completely correct. So as you can see here, this comes first. The brackets always come first. Brackets indicate that you want to evaluate this thing first. They're important to use if you're doing arithmetic expressions, because like if you want to be specific about what you're evaluating, they're good to use. So I would stress use them. Yeah, line 1 is a typo.
Sorry, yeah, Alex. I just
Yeah.
want to mention a typo that I found, and that somebody found in here. So you see the backward slashes? They're actually supposed to be forward slashes. Sorry about that.
I apologize for that.
I'm sorry about that too.
So yeah, they're just they should be the forward
Yeah.
slashes, but
I'll change that in the actual slides later.
yeah. So so we have brackets come first, then we have exponentiation, then the order of the multiplication, division, double division, and modulus, these really don't matter too much. Like I don't really think the order matters. What about negative number using minus? Oh, that's a good question, actually.
That I believe comes right before the power symbol.
Yeah, I think that counts as multiplication, right? Because that's just multiplying by -1. So, and then you have plus and minus. So if you're familiar with BEDMAS rules, these are basically pretty much the same thing. All right, some examples. So does anyone know what 6 quotient 4 would return? Just feel free to answer in chat, or you can raise your hand, answer out loud, whatever you're more comfortable with. 1.5, yes. I should show all the questions first. Okay, 2. I think that is a typo. It should be 1.5, but yeah, other than
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
That's fine though. That's okay. It's 1.5, just to be clear. Okay. Second, 6 floored quotient 4. What does this return? 1. Yep. 10 quotient 5. What will this return? Yep, exactly. It is a float specifically because when you're doing the quotient of two numbers, it will always return a float. If you wanted the integer, you would have to either typecast that as an integer, or you would have to do the floored quotient. Okay. 4 double star 3. What will this give us? Yep, that is just 6 or 4 to the power of 3. And finally, 13 mod 7. What will this give us? 6, 6, 6. Yes, correct, 6, because we put 7 in once and then we try to put 7 in again. We can't. Okay, what is the number? What is the number like that gets us to what is the number left over? We have 6. Great, amazing. Okay. The function design recipe. So this is the second most important thing. Anya stresses this. It's a big part of this course, so it's really important. So first of all, naming conventions. We want good naming conventions for naming our functions. It's typically good to name your function after a verb or verb phrase. And you should ask yourself basically, what does my function do? What task does it perform, right? So for example, a good name for a function that rounds up an integer would be round underscore int. Typically in Python, you're using the lowercase for your function names. So they should be given in lowercase. There should absolutely be no spaces. Just when you're naming your function, use underscores if you want to separate words. And you should be writing your def and your function name above the docstring, and then have your docstring indented after it. So just one indent down here. And then obviously you should definitely be including your type contracts, both for your parameters and your output. So this is just an example of how to format it. Don't name your function foo. You should be naming it after what it does, but this is just an example of like how this is formatted essentially. This is generally formatted. Okay. If nobody has any questions, unless someone has any questions, I will go to the next part. So second most important part, and you should always be including these, your example function calls. So you should always be including at least 2 of these in your doc strings, and they're formatted as follows. So you have your function, some sort of input, and then you want to see, you want to see that it returns like what it's supposed to be returning. So yeah, we'll do an example after, so don't worry if this is a little unclear. I'll go over it in the the Python shell, and we can do an example. Okay, the function, the next part of the function design recipe is the description. And you should always be including a description in your doc strings as well. And it should be the first thing in the doc string. And you need to explicitly mention the parameter name. So if you have a parameter like foobar and foo, they need to both be in your description. And like their specific names. Like you can't use another name for them. You have to explicitly mention them by name. So that's really important. And also another thing, it's a little subtle, but use return and not returns. So you're not like saying, oh, my program does this. You're saying it's more like you're saying my program should do this, or it's like you're giving a command to your program. Like if I was telling my program to do something, I wouldn't tell it, oh, returns this. I would tell it, return this. So just think of it like you're telling your program what to do essentially in your description. And it's formatted like this. You have the description right next to your first brackets, and your test would be under here. And finally, your function body, the meat of the code. So this is the code part of your function, the actual thing that does stuff. So it should be indented so that it matches your doc string indentation. And if you might have additional indentations for for loops, but the main indentation should match this. And you should always, every single time, always end your function with return value. Like, do not leave a function without a return value, because that is not correct, at least within the context of this course. Always return something. Your function should always be returning something. Okay. And here's a full good example of, and we'll go over another one too, in the wing shell. So here's a good example of a function that follows the design recipe principles. So we have the function def is even. So this function basically checks if a number's given input's even and outputs true if it is and false if it isn't. So we have our description, which is return true if and only if num is an even number, and false otherwise. So we're telling our program what to do. We're telling it return true if num is an even number. We mention the parameter explicitly by name, and we have our two sample function calls with the desired outputs under them. It should be like pretty much like completely under them, like they should have the same indentation, but Google PowerPoint doesn't. I was kind of not working, but we'll go over an example together. And then we have our function body, which basically just returns whether or not the number mod 2 is equal to 0, which is just an easy way of checking if our output is good. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen for a sec, and we will go into my wing shell and look at an example there. Okay. All right, give me a second. Here we go. All right, can everyone see? It's all good? Okay. So might have a function called round up. So we're gonna take an integer b, or no, actually, we're gonna say round. We're gonna take an integer b, and we're gonna output an integer. And so who can tell me what would be a good doc string for this function? And anyone can, or what would be a good description first of all, starting off, because description is the first thing we're going to put down. Also, this should be a float because we're going to take in a float value, and this should also return floats because float. Right. Yeah, we're just making a sample function that's going to use the round function, or actually, yeah, no, good call. Yeah, so we'll just call this round num. So yeah, just the point of this is basically looking at an example of how you would design a function based off the function design recipe. Yeah. So anyways, Yeah, so good job, Ichika. Return rounded value of B. Good. So we're gonna just do 2 example calls. Yeah, so it will be formatted like this. Num, and I don't know, let's say 12.08. Now this should return 13. And who's another example? Like just any doctrine example. Yeah. So who's another example? Just yeah. Round. We can do that round 45.45. And that will just give us 45. So that's good. That's basically the entire doc string. Basically, this is a more simple example, but and we can include more. Yeah, you can always do another one too. Round 12.5. And again, just as an exercise, this, because it's 0.5, it's going to go down to the nearest integer. And finally,
Alex?
Yeah.
Just some people are mentioning in the chat, shouldn't the return be a float instead? Like
yeah. Don't worry, I fixed it up here. Oh yeah, yes. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. So sorry about that, everyone. I'm sorry I confused everyone there. Okay. So yeah, and this will be our return value. That should work. Yeah, so then we have our function body. This isn't a very big function body, but again, we have a return value. I guess, actually, no, we could just do this. This would be better illustrative. So we have something and we do an assignment statement and then return C like that. And that should work. Right, okay, yeah. Then we could do round. Now we could just check to make sure our examples work. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we have a lot to cover still. Oh, that does return an integer value. Interesting.
Remember for, I believe, round, it returns an integer if you don't put any other parameters. For
right,
the second
yes. Yeah. Exactly, okay. That makes sense, okay. Yeah, so perhaps we should return rounded value B to the nearest integer. Should get that. But yeah, this is just what this function does isn't too important. What's more important is, understanding the function design recipe principles, what you should be including in each of your functions, your body, your description, your example function calls, and the header. So that's just the main idea, basically. No, you don't need to have C. I'm just doing this to illustrate like what a function body would look like. Anyways, I'm going to stop sharing this now. We can get back to the presentation. Give me a second. Share. Okay. Great. So next topic, if-else statements. So basically what an if statement does is it checks if a condition holds true. So, it might be an interval of numbers, it might be something equals something, and then it runs the code within that statement. And you need to indent your code inside there so that Python knows it's inside of the if statement, so just be aware of that. So for instance, we might have a value called num, and if num is greater than or equal to 18, which means if num is 18 or bigger than it, then it will run that code. And yeah, so the code is going to be run like if and only if num is greater than or equal to 18, otherwise it skips. Okay. Else statements. So basically, an else statement will function as basically a statement that will run only if your if statement is false. So it's basically you're basically saying, okay, if this is true, I'll do this, otherwise I'll do that. So example, let's say we have a value called foobar, and it's greater than or equal to 18, we'll run the code inside there. But if foobar is less than 18, then obviously that's not going to run. But the else statement is guaranteed to run in that case. So we will either be running one or the other, depending on the value of foobar. All right, does anyone have any questions? If not, I'll go on to the next slide. Yes, Josephson, yeah.
We have to also look into else if statements and what's the difference between if state like repeated if statements and repeated else if statements.
Yeah, don't worry. We will be going into that very shortly. So don't worry. We will be going into that, the differences between those. There's two other people raising their hands. Shinja Ahmed.
Yeah, hi. So say like foobar returns a bool. So say it would be like true if it's greater than or equal to 18.
Yeah.
Would we still have to write the else statement?
Well, it depends on like what you're coding. No, you don't need an else statement, but depending on what you're coding or what you're trying to accomplish, the else statement is helpful because you might want to do something else in the case where your if statement evaluates the false. So no, you don't need the else statement. It's not necessary, but sometimes you will use it.
Okay, then, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And Yitong Li Tony.
Yes. I have a specific question about the 2018 the multiple choice. It's about the if and else statement.
Yeah.
So may I type the question in the chat box?
Yeah, sure. No, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just to be clear, guys, everyone will be going over the else and else ifs, the else if statements, and the difference between else and else if after this. So don't worry, we will get into that.
And so this is the question, and
X, Y, count 0 if X is greater than 0. After running the code, what is the result of evaluating the variable count? A1, 2. I don't know if I can go over specific questions right now.
because I was wondering because the answer is C.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it turns out to be C.
If you count 1, X plus Y, count plus 2. Oh, yeah. So basically, looking at your X and Y, right? You know that X is greater than 0. So you're going to add 1 to count. Count is 0 initially. Then you have X plus Y is less than 4, which it is. It's 3. So obviously, count equals count plus 2. And then we have Y minus X is greater than 1. Okay.
Would you like me to try to explain it?
Yeah, that might.
Okay. So since X is greater than 0, count equals count plus 1. So count equals 1. Since that if statement is correct, the elif statement is not checked. So even if X plus Y is less than 4, since that if statement X is greater than 0 is correct, we don't do the elif statement. And then we go down to the next if statement. So if Y minus X is greater or equal to 1, so Y minus X is 1. Yeah, so it is true. Then the count equals count plus 3. So 1 plus 3, it equals 4. And then since that if statement is correct, the else statement is not run. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a good explanation. Okay, so if nobody else has any questions, we'll go on to the next slide, and hopefully we can get into the difference between else and else if. I know that's a contentious point for a lot of people, so that will be good to get into. Okay, so else if statements. So these are similar to if statements. They're sort of a mix between if and else statements, but you only check the condition if and let me go back. apologies. Here we go. Okay, so these are sort of similar to, or these are sort of a mix almost of else and if statements. So essentially what they do is they'll check an if condition, but it sort of functions like an else, right? So we look, right? If foo bar is less than or equal to 18, we'll go here and we'll check this. We'll check this condition. And if that condition holds true, then we'll run this other code. But the thing to note about else if that makes it unique from just another if statement is that the program only recognizes or only tries to evaluate this if our if statement's false. So the difference between having just an if statement here is it would run this if statement regardless of whether this is true or false. Whereas the else if is contingent on foo bar being less than or equal to 18. And it's different from else because, well, else basically does the same sort of thing, but else doesn't have a condition like an else if. So there's still a chance that this might be false and not run either. And one more, yeah.
Just one more specification that was also put in the chat. It is elif.
Yeah, it is elif in Python. I apologize. Yeah, so it is elif in Python. I think I was thinking of another language when I was writing this, so I apologize. But yeah, it's ELIF. So I'm very sorry about that. Hopefully I didn't cause too much confusion by that. But anyways, does anybody have any questions so far, or can we go on to the next topic? All right, I guess we'll go on. So sometimes you don't even need to use if else or else ifs or if else or else if statements, right? So most of the time when this comes up, you'll have basically a Boolean function, which is going to check for some value being in between something. And you can usually simplify these by specifying an interval. Yeah. So we look at this function, right? And we see, okay, if age is less than or equal to 18, it'll return false, right? And we have an else if statement. So if this, note that the elif statements here aren't too relevant because we have the return values. So if this returns true, it's going to exit anyways. But yeah, so we have the else elif here. If age is greater than or equal to 27, we're also going to return false. And if both of these are false, right, then we're going to return true. So we're essentially looking for if age is in between 18 and 27. And if you notice the sort of logic behind this program, we can simplify it in this very neat interval, which is just return 18 is less than age is less than 27, right? And these solutions, Anya usually likes these solutions a lot because they're very simple and they're very simple and sweet. You know, it's easy to read and easy to understand, but you won't always be able to do this, so just keep that in mind. Okay, and yeah, so here's a common mistake people often make when doing or using else if statements. So note that if age greater than or equal to 18, do thing, else if age is less than or equal to 18, do other thing. This is not the same thing as just having two if statements. And can anyone tell me why? Is anyone able to tell me why these are not the same thing? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so specifically in the case of this code, say we have age is equal to 18, right? Actually, no, it's not a good example. So say we have age is equal to, oh good, for this age is equal to 17. Right. So age in this case, age would not be actually I think in the same case, but yeah, I mean, general idea is that having an if and else if is not the same as just having two ifs, because one will evaluate only if this evaluates false, whereas it's going to check both of these regardless. Like it doesn't matter if is true or false here, this is going to run and be checked anyways. Okay. Someone raised their hand. Yeah. Who? Yep. Sheen Ahmed. Yeah. Feel free to ask your question. I'm fine with that. That is, or you can answer in chat. That's good too. Okay. I guess we'll just go on then. And another thing, be careful when you're working with less than or equal to, less or greater than or equal to, greater than, because again, they mean different things. So, I mean, a lot of time when we're working with inequalities, we like to, or when we're working with if statements, we like to work with these inequalities, right? These less than or equal to symbols. So just note that less than or equal to's and greater than or equal to's are inclusive. So basically all numbers greater than or equal to 18 will include 18, and just greater than 18 does not. And just be sure to think about, you know, how it applies to your problem and use the correct one for your problem. So make sure the interval you're looking at is the one you want specifically. Then check chat if anyone has any questions. Does it matter if I switch positions of less than or equal to? Good question, actually. Katrina, do you know if it matters if you switch the positions of the? I don't think.
I don't think so, but I'm gonna double check it right now. If you want, you can show it through Wing.
Yeah. I think that would be a good idea, actually.
I believe it does matter though.
Yeah, so let me share my.
And afterwards, Alex, you have a question from Shinza.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say we try 15 less than or equal to 16. We get true. Okay, but this is key thing to note. We get a syntax error, right? Because this is not the same thing as this, right? So this is its own sort of operator almost that works on these two things, whereas this Python doesn't really know what this means, right? It likes you to be exact. So just note that it should always be your arrow and then your equal sign. And then I think for the case, this is equal to 17. Yeah, that gives you syntax error too. So for the case of the other one, it should be the arrow comes first and then the equal sign. Otherwise, you're going to get a syntax error. So just make sure you keep this in mind on your midterm. This is important. So for the greater than equal to sign, the arrow comes first and then the equal sign. And then for the other one, for the less than or equal to, again, arrow does come first and then the equal sign. It might not be the way on the presentation. We might have a typo. So if it is, I apologize for that. Okay. So yeah, intervals. All right, so a very common question Anya will ask on the first midterm is she'll basically require you to make a function that classifies like a user or maybe like a value associated with the user, like maybe age, number, pH. It might be like, I think pH level was one of them for a midterm. And you use if-else statements to sort of classify different intervals to see if your input value is true or false. So for this example, we're going to write a function that returns whether a given user or a given is qualified for free subway rides in a city subway program. So this subway program gives free rides to people who are 10 years old or less. So keep in mind that it is inclusive of 10. That are in between inclusive of age 15 and age 18 and people who are 45 years old or more. So I'm going to share my Python again. Okay, so free rides. So we'll get on this age, and we'll say int. And this will be a Boolean function. So this is just good to go over right now in case anyone wants to or doesn't know what this is or is confused on what this is. This is just a function that will return either a value true or false. So we're going to get rid of this. All right, so checks whether a user given age or no, that should be return right. Return true if a user of age qualifies for free subway rides, and false otherwise. Okay, we're not going to go into doctoring samples right now, but again, if you're doing code, you should always include 2 of them. So, we'll get to that after because I do want to cover the actual how we go about this. So, first if statement. What do you think we should put in for the first if statement? Anyone like to answer? Yep, Joseph, go right ahead, take the stage.
I'm sorry. What was the age again? They said minimum age.
Yeah, so it's 10 or less, 10 or under will get free subway rides.
So if age is less than or equal to 10.
Yeah, correct, exactly. And then notice how you always put the little semicolon after your if statement, and then it will automatically indent. But make sure on the midterm you just do a little indentation on your page just to note that it's inside the if statement, just so your markers have an easier time understanding what you meant. So then we have a return value here, return true. Now, because of the return values, it doesn't really matter too much here whether you use elif or else or just a bunch of if statements. But let's say, I don't know, we're working for a company and we want to, we want this program to, have, well, it actually doesn't really matter there either because of the return statements, but let's just practice with elifs anyways, so we understand their use. So let's say this value is the false, right? Okay. Well, we might want an else statement here or an else if statement here. Now, what do you think should go in there? What? Now, remember, yeah, you will have to, yeah, Mohammed, yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so basically, what was the second age that you get a free?
It was in between 15 and 18 inclusive.
50 and 18 inclusive?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I've thought is not using the else if, but
Yep.
putting an or. If age is less than 10 or
right, yes, that's actually good to bring up. So or statements are another important things. You basically can denote them like this, and this basically what this does is it just evaluates, it looks at this, is this true? Yes, then go into here. Or is the thing to the right of it true? And if that's true, it'll go in.
But
now,
I don't think Java would, Python reads this. I think that's Java.
Oh, okay.
I think you should put an or after the brackets and open a new bracket.
Right, yeah. Or after the brackets, right? So like this, right?
No, you actually type or.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
You're
Yeah,
thinking
like
Java.
That. Yeah, I apologize to everyone right now. Yeah, so you probably mean this, right? And then no, not that, like that, right? Yeah. Right, so that's another thing we can do. The or statement just checks, okay, is this true? Then run this. Is it not true? Okay, well look here. If this is true, then we'll run this. So basically we'll just run the code if either of those value to true. Now we could just use an or statement for the last part too, but I guess since we want to practice with else if statements, we'll just do the final one as an elif. So if any of these aren't true, we'll check the final condition now. Does anyone have a guess for what should go in here? Yeah, Nielsen. Yeah, take the stage.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask a question.
Yeah.
So for on the midterm, would she take marks off if we don't put like parentheses for if statements? Or
I don't think it's required. I don't think it's required. I don't think it's necessary. I'm just doing it here so it's more readable, so we see like, okay, these are the different statements. But like if you're asking if we can just do something like if age less than or equal to 18, like that, yeah, that's perfectly valid. That's fine, Python. So yeah, I don't think she'll take marks off for that. Though it is good to use brackets just to clarify, different statements, especially in the case we're using an OR.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. So anyways, what do you think should go in this elif? Now remember, we give free rides to, yeah, so Sabine Mohammed,
Was it age greater than or equal to 45?
yes, correct. Great job. So it's like this. Like that, we will return true. Now, something to note or something we want to include after is a default return statement, because there's a chance, right, that, we might not go into either of these if or elif statements. And well, what Python, I don't even think this might not compile actually, but yeah, it's always good to return a default return statement, just so we have something in case both of these statements fail, which we will if the user is not able to. Another thing we could do is just else return false, right? So if both of these evaluate to false, then we will return false. And again, just to be safe, we want to include another return false here, just in case that I don't know, something goes wrong and we don't go into here. We will always be going into here, but it's just in case, right? Yeah, we could do this without if else, but I'm just going into like, if you were to do it with if else bad syntax. Yeah, so
This was just to show, like we're going through how to do it with the bad practice, the if and else, because your question might specify to actually use if and else statements. And then in another question, it could ask, okay, do this exact same question, but without if and else statements. So we're
Right.
showing you both sides so you don't forget either of them.
Right. Yeah, like you could do this without any of like the if or else statements. You could just have one return line, but we're just like, sometimes she'll ask you to do like the actual if and else chain. I think she did on my midterm, so it's just good to know how to do it this way. Cosma, ask away.
Why can you not just include the elif statement next to the or statement as a third argument?
Yeah, we could just write, if what you're saying, like, yeah, we could just do this. But I'm just doing the elif so we can like get an idea of, oh, okay, like this is how we would include elif statements in our code essentially. Like, but yes, you could just do for age greater than or equal to 45 and then get rid of this. You could just do that. So yes. Sorry for any confusion. You could do that too. But again, I was just including the elif so you'd see how it would look in the code essentially. Does that clear everything up? Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the presentation. Actually,
yeah. Alex, could we take like a 5, maybe 10-minute break?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be good for everyone to, catch their, catch their breath, just take a nice break. And we can answer questions during this time too, if anyone has any questions right now.
So we will come back at, let's say 7:14.
Yeah.
we'll answer questions at this time though. So if you want to get up, you
Yeah.
can leave right now or just.
Yeah, we're gonna post a link to the slides. We're gonna post a link to the slides, right?
Yeah, I believe we can. I was gonna ask Anya whether or not we can do it on Piazza as well, but we can
Yeah.
definitely send the link in here.
Yeah, don't worry. We don't have any problem with with giving links to the slides. So yeah, there's no worries there. We will be doing that. Where are we uploading the recording again? Will Prof.
I was also going to ask Anya whether or not we could post it on the same thread that we had on Piazza. We would upload the link underneath and just say edited. Yes,
me.
Anya will care about styling. Sorry, just to answer Nelson.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this will definitely be posted on the AMAX Discord server.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's probably the first place we're putting.
Yeah. Might take a little while because we have to upload the recording. But as soon as we can, we will.
Also, Cosmo, you can go ahead with your question, by the way. Where's the link to the Discord?
Yeah, I got it. Hold on.
Great.
This should be it.
Yeah. I mean, and Cosmo, like you want to, or Kamsa, if you want to go ahead with your question.
Yeah, this is a link that won't expire.
It's ready for HGTV. Maybe.
Yeah, I hope you guys have fun. I did it in my first year and it was in person. And I think I slept like 4 hours over the entire weekend. It was so wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I am in comp sci. I'm also in math as well. Yeah.
I'm not in comp sci. I'm actually in statistics right now and psychology. No, I'm in the stat specialist.
Yeah, she's taking with the stat specialist, you can take most of the B-level courses that the CS people do. So that's always another option if you're interested in that. Data science is a very interesting field. So again, that's always a good route to go down as well.
Sorry, Katrina, I have questions because I want to get into the data side like specialist stream. What courses are like would you recommend for second year or like first year just to
Data
prepare for?
Specialist?
Yeah. It's a stats specialist stream, I think. It's data science and machine learning, I believe.
Yeah. So for that one, yeah, you take the base level of ComSci courses, and then there is STAB 52 and STAB 57. Those are like the main statistics courses, Introduction to Probability and Statistics. I think you'll also take some of the ComSci courses like Alex was saying. So you can take CSCB07, Software Design. I don't think CSCB09 is included. CSCB 36, which is Theory of Computation, and then CSCB 63. I'm not sure what that's called, Alex.
CSCB 63, that is Introduction to Data Structures, I believe. What about a major in stats with comp sci? I don't think the major includes the comp sci course.
So.
I think that's just for ML because you need the maturity in computer science topics. A67. How did you do in A67? I got a 78 in A67.
I forget, honestly.
I would just recommend doing your homework early and yeah, I'm going to lectures, and reading your notes before the lectures and after the lectures, just good study habits. Yeah, I mean, if the quiz is hard, sometimes there's nothing you can do. I know I've felt it before. Can I switch to business? Yeah, I mean, if you haven't applied for your program yet, you can switch to business.
Well, none of them have, I don't think,
Yeah.
at least. If you're first year,
Yeah,
you apply at the end of your second year or like halfway through your
Yeah.
second year.
Yeah.
And then if you don't make it to the post you wanted, you can also apply at the end of summer, but it's a lot harder.
yeah. I mean, you may have to if you've just been taking CS courses, you may have to. Yeah, I may switch to McDonald's. Same, Henry. Same. I'm gonna switch to McDonald's too. Honestly.
Yeah, I've got some connections if
Yeah.
you want to go to McDonald's.
My sister works there as well, so. No, I'm second year actually. For the midterm,
Also second year.
what style conventions do we pay attention to? All the stuff we mentioned in the design recipe. There's, again, if you can make the code simpler, do it. Make sure your variables have intelligible names. Anya said this before, but basically your code should not need any comments, at least within the context of this course. Like you should be able to look at your code and say, oh, yeah, I understand how that works. Like, and good variable naming and good function naming are like just a part of that, basically. And making your code, as we've shown, like sometimes you don't have to use if statements, so just making your code as simple as possible, unless she like specifically states you have to like use if else statements. Yeah.
This is worth, I believe, 8%, and the second one is worth 6 or 12%. It should be in the syllabus though. I don't know if we're allowing to print the test. I think we are. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think people, at least I don't know about this semester, so I don't want to comment on that. I think last semester there were people who printed it out. You just have to be on camera at all times.
Let me toes. Yeah, I think the second test should have the same formatting. If it isn't, then she will also specify that. She'll make it bright and bold. So don't worry about that.
It's not open book, right? I don't think it's open book.
It's closed.
There's I think she may give you like function or like built-in function definitions, but that's about it.
Yeah.
What is the AMA CSS Discord for? It's just for the math, CS and stats association. It's just you sort of, hang out with the people from there, and I think sometimes they hold events, and I think
There's lots of events.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely recommend like everyone apply for, or yeah, I definitely recommend applying for like holding review seminars or just a position in general. Yes, you can be a member. You can, there's applications for different roles. And I've heard, at least I've heard that it can increase your chances of getting a TA ship. So, I mean, I got in here and then I got a TA ship. So it can help with your chances of getting a TA ship. So I would definitely recommend doing it.
So I just copied and pasted like a little blurb from the Piazza post. I will share it in the chat. I'm not sure if everybody has seen it. But essentially, yeah, you're going to be writing your answers on blank sheets of paper. And then at the end of the test, you'll put your pencils down and you'll take pictures.
Yeah, my pay is 46 an hour, I believe. Yeah. Hope I was allowed to disclose that.
I don't know if you were allowed to, but okay. How do you apply to become a member? I'm not sure for AMAX. We have a website, and you can always contact us as well.
Does being a TA take away from? Not really. I just go to a few lectures each day. Things might get a little heavier with marking, but it shouldn't be too bad.
Next semester, like there are certain courses that are a bit harder to TA. So for this course, there's office hours, and we don't have to mark any of your assignments because they're automatically marked. But I know for A48, I've also TA'd that one. Yeah, and essentially we hold tutorials. So you have to plan your own tutorials. You hold office hours, and you also, I believe we mark the assignments as well. So there is not a mark requirement, honestly, for being a TA. It's how motivated you are in the course, and also if the professors know you, if they know that you're working hard. Like, honestly, that is worth more than just great grades.
There's an application form for TAs that's released, I believe, like before every section or semester, and you can apply there.
Yeah. Okay, it is 7:15. Alex, if you want to go back to it.
Yep, of course.
We want you all to pass. You're gonna be great though.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Like if you work hard and you're motivated, like you'll pass. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to it, everyone. I hope you had a good break. All right, so previously we went over just making a function that basically gets us, specifies whether the person gets free transit. Here's a solution I put together. It should be LF. As always, that was a typo. I apologize. But yeah, here's the solution I provided. We also did another one on the wing shelf, but but this is basically the solution I gave. It's pretty similar to what we did. We used the OR statement just as an example, but yes, this basically does the same thing. We should also have a default return statement here too. I should have put just return false here, but yeah. Strings and string methods. So this is the next topic. This is important too. It's important to learn how to manipulate strings. So the string class in Python can sort of be thought as a collection of characters. You have like a bunch of characters. The string is sort of like putting them all together essentially. And it's important to note that characters in the string are indexed starting from 0 to the length of the string -1. So if I have a string of length 6, the indices for the characters will be 0, which is the first one, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yeah, you can access the single characters, the individual characters, by indexing, which we will get to shortly. All right, so here's just an example of accessing these specific characters at an index. Foobar 0 will give the letter G, or the characters G. Foobar 7 will give the character K. Foobar 2 will give the little o, again, because we go 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the 0 is just the beginning one. Foobar 8 gives big O, and so on. And I also just want to go over something in the shell quickly. We can also use negative indices. So let's say, let me just run this again, just so we don't get that cluttered. So everyone can see this, right? We're good? Okay. Let's say we have the string hello. And we want to access 1. Or we want to access -1, for example. So what this will give us is, oh, right. So when you want to access you can access using negative indices, and it will start. So -1 will be this one, -2 will be this one, -3 will be this one, -4, -5. So it will go from -1 to the length of the string. So we can try another. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
But on the slides, I just wanted to make a small clarification because some people are asking.
Yeah.
We do want the variable names to be lowercase.
Yes. Sorry, I just want to say apologies about that. I don't know why when I was making the PowerPoint, it likes to, make things uppercase, and it was very tricky to work with. So I apologize if some of the variable names are uppercase, but yeah, they should be lowercase. Like all your variable names should be lowercase. That is the formatting Anya once. So yes, make all your variable names lowercase, and your function names should be lowercase. 3 sets. So again, the -3 will go -1, -2, -3. That's the L. String -2. Yeah, and you see you go -1, -2. So I think you probably all get the main idea behind that now. So we can also use negative indices, except they don't start at 0 because we already have 0 for this one. So it wouldn't make sense to say like -0. Okay. Second. Here we go. So next, strings and string methods. So again, as we mentioned, you can access the string backwards. So if we have foobar, good luck on midterm, the -1 will give M, the -5 will give D, and the -8 will give N. So we have, again, -1 here. We have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, giving us D. And we have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, which gives us the N part. Okay. Yeah, so you just go from -1 to negative the length of the string. And note, it's not negative a length of the string +1, it's just length of the string because we're starting at -1 in this case. So string slicing, this is very important. This is another good important thing you can do with strings. Shinza Ahmed, yeah.
Hi, sorry, I just have a question.
Yeah.
How would we go from like the first method to what's the formula to transfer from like the first method to like the second method? Like for example, like 0 to like the negative.
Oh yeah, okay, good question. Transfer, you mean like, okay, if you have like something at 2, how would you write that as a negative index? Yeah, good question. Okay. So essentially what you're doing when you're using the negative indexing is you're going backwards. You're starting at -1, which is the end of the string, and you're going -2, -3. I don't know if there's like a particular formula you can use to convert between them, but essentially -1 is the last character in your string, which in the case of your regular indexing, that would just be the length of your string -1. And then the first
Alex?
one would, yeah.
Sorry. Somebody mentioned something that might be a little bit easier to, I guess, kind of explain, but the negative index is the index that you're at minus the length of the string.
Yes, thank you. Great call there. Yes. So
thank you, Ishika, for putting that in.
Yeah. So it's essentially the index you're at, as you know, your friend in the chat so nicely mentioned. It's basically just the whatever you're at in the string minus the length of the string. So if I'm at 0, well, minus the length of the string will just give us the end or the negative end of the string. And if we're at the length of the string, minusing the length of the string will just give us 0, which is the start, right? Or yeah, right. Yeah. So if we're at 0, minusing the length of the string will just give us minus length of the string, which is again the first index, and then it's the other way around. So yeah, so you just subtract the length of the string. Great. That's really good to know, actually. All right. Now for slicing, we can use it to access certain parts of the string. So it has the same indexing notation as for selecting a single character. Note that for the slice of a string from A to B, we start from index A and we'll go up to B minus 1, not B. So we do not include the final index right here. So we don't go up to B, we go up to A, we start at A, we include A, but then we only go up to B minus 1, right? And we can also do negative indexing. So we can do string negative B and then minus A. And this works in the same way as just selecting a single negative character. And we'll go into this later, but it is important to have a sensical slicing. Otherwise, you'll get an empty string. And I'll go into some of the mistakes people might make with this a bit later on. And if you don't include anything in the second spot, so you just do A dot blank, it will just go from A to the end of the string. All right, everyone good with that?
Alex, there's a question. Can you do an example of the slicing? Yeah,
yes, exactly.
slicing.
I can actually do an example of the slicing. So let me just pull up I'm just going to run this again. We're going to run the shell. So let's say we have foobar is equal to, we'll assign this to good luck on midterm. That should be good. Okay, so let's say we just want the good luck part, right? I just want to wish you good luck. So we'll start at 0 and we want to go up to the 7th index. So we'll go from 0 to 7. Oh, sorry, that was wrong. Actually, we should be going up to 0 to 8, right? Because that is 0, 1, 2, right? Yeah, because it goes up to 7 minus 1. So this would go up to 8 minus 1, which is 7, which is what we want. So we get the good luck part. But also we can index backwards. We can do foobar. Let's say we want the on midterm part, right? We can go from -8 or -7, -9 to the end of the string, right? And that gives us on midterm, right? Because we're going from -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, 6, 7, 9. We're starting at -9, and because we just left this empty, we go to the end of the string. So, does that make sense? Or do you want me to go over a few more? Is that good? Yeah, I think. Yeah. All right. So I guess we should get back to the presentation. All right. So here's just some examples. So we'd have good luck on midterm. 0 to 4 would give you the good part of foobar. 1 to 6 would give you the OOD LU. Remember, we never include the index at the end. Foobar 3 to 7 would give you DLUC, right? We don't include the 7. -8 to -1 would give you N midter. Again, we don't include the -1 part. And -6 to -2 gives you this part because we go -1, -2, and we're starting at -6. So we're going up to, but not including -2. Is that clear? What if you did -2? Yeah, actually, we're going to be going into that shortly, but you shouldn't do that. And I'll explain why shortly. So the step parameter. So when you're slicing strings, you can also include a step parameter for your slice. So if the no parameter is included, which what we've been doing so far, the default step is 1. So you're just going forward, right? So you're just stepping forward to the next character, to the next character, to the next character. And the -1, if you put in -1, that is based as your step parameter, you're going backwards. So you're starting at your index and you're walking backwards to your index. So here are some examples, right? So we have good luck on midterm. And we start at 0 and we go up to, but not including 10. So we're basically looking at every second character. So we go G and then we go 1, 2, include that, 1, 2, include that, 1, 2, include that, and then 1, 2, include that. But we don't go farther because it does not go including or past 10. And then, for example, foobar 8 to 1, since we're going backwards this time, we would start at index 8, so that would be right here, and we go backwards. We go backwards, right, until we go up to, but not including 1, right? So we stop here, so we'll include the single O, but we're basically stepping backwards and then getting every single character that we get going on that walk, basically. All right, does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, foobar is usually just placeholder names. They should be lowercase, by the way. Just yeah. We already mentioned that, but yeah, they should be lowercase. Okay, and yeah, this is what I want to go over since I know a lot of people are wondering about this. So make sure your given slice and step makes sense. Otherwise, your slice will give you the empty string. So for example, if I have foobar good luck on midterm and I do 5 to 2 as my slice, we know that the default step is 1, but this doesn't really make much sense because we're starting at index 5 and then we're saying walk forward to index 2, but that's not going to happen, right? There's nothing. I can't get to index 2 from here going forward, right? Since the default step is 1. So it's just going to return the empty string in this case because our given step and indexing or slice doesn't make much sense. -8 to 2 also would, yeah, so foobar -8 to 2 wouldn't make much sense either because again, the -8 slice will be in front of 2. Actually, this isn't always the case, but in the case of our string, it will be because we have -1, -2, -3, -4. Yeah, so at -8, clearly it's above 2. So if you walk forward from there, you're not going to get to the index you want. And foobar 2, 6, and -1 would also return the empty string because you're saying, okay, I want to walk backwards from 2 to get to index 6, but again, that doesn't make much sense because index 6 is in front of 2. So does that make any sense? Does it? No, it does return the empty string. I can demonstrate this actually. Here. So let's try foobar, I don't know, 5 to 2. It will give us the empty string. You can also do foobar 2 to 5 and then and then -1. That'll give us the empty string too, because again, that's not really sensical given our step and slice combination. Can you please explain foobar 1, 2, 3 again? So does foobar to -8 work? Yes, to -8 would work because we are starting at index 2 and we're going to walk forward to -8, and that makes sense because -8 is in front of 2. So just make sure that in the direction you're going, given your step, the indices make sense. So if you're going forward, the indice you're ending at should be greater than or in front of the indice that you're starting at, and vice versa if you are going backwards. So the opposite, basically, if you're going backwards, if that makes any sense. Can you explain?
Hamza, yeah, there's the 1, 2, and 3. So if you look at your step and you look at your actual range, your range is from position 1 to position 2, or index 1 to index 2. And your step is 3. So it's not going to return anything, or it's going to return an empty string. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Thank you, Katrina. Foobar 1, 2, yes, yeah, and thanks for mentioning that too. If you have a slice and then you have a step that's bigger than the entire slice, it's going to give you the empty string because there's not 3. You can't like go 3 across if your slice is only 1 to 2. So that's just another. I just tried 1, 2, 3 and it worked. Okay. Yeah, we could try that. Let's go over that. Foobar 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Oh, okay. We have slice 1 to 2.
Oh, right, because 1 is included.
Right.
So
yeah.
the first parameter. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No,
that
no.
First one will be included. Then from there, it's the step. So yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So it will include 1 because it always includes the starting index. But yeah, everything after that is invalid. So it will include that. Thanks for pointing that out, by the way. Major props. All right, if everyone's okay with this. Oh, Kamsa, yeah. Please go ahead.
Teeter, I meant, what does the third parameter do?
The third parameter specifies basically your step. So if it's 2, for example, you're looking at every second character in the string. So let's say I'm starting at this index. If I'm going step 2, I'm going, okay, I'm considering this character, then this character, then this character, and then so on, right? Up to wherever you're ending. If it's a negative number, then you're just moving backwards essentially. So you're whatever you're starting at, you're going to move back from that to wherever you're ending at. If that makes, does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. All right. So is everyone's good with this, right? Yeah. Okay. So just another example of a string method. Dot lower is also another, dot lower is a string method. So basically lower will take a string, given string, and will make all of its alphabetic characters lowercase. So for example, if I have foobar CSCA08 2021, if I do dot lower, it will give you CSCA08 2021. Now something just a little subtle here that I just want to bring up quickly is that you don't put the string inside lower. It is a method, not a function that acts on a string. Rather, what strings are in Python are something called an object, and the lower method is acting on foobar. So foobar is basically a string object, and lower is something that's acting on the object. Now it's a little hard to explain within the scope of this course, but just note that when you're using a string method, you should do the string dot lower, not lower and then put the string inside there. That would be incorrect. So let's say we have foo and this is hello. This would just make all the characters lowercase. Yeah. And here's some other string methods, and we can actually go over these if you want. So I think it'd be good to go over these just quickly. Yep. So let's go in. I'll run this again. So we'll just say foobar is equal to A2 D2. So if we run, for example, the is alphanumeric function on foobar is this, it gives us true. So what the is alphanumeric method does is it looks, okay, we're looking at this thing, we're looking at the string, we're saying, okay, is everything in here either a digit or an alphabetic letter? And that's true, right? So it will give us the Boolean value. We'll also have foobar. We can also do foobar is upper, and this will return true. Now, is upper looks at every alphabetic character in this string, and if they're all uppercase, like regardless of whether there's non-alphabetic characters or not, it will return true. In this case, we can see that is true. And finally, we can do is digit. I don't want to go too much into these because it's not like super important that you know the specific methods, just how they work essentially. False. So is digit just looks at whether this string is just all digit characters, so all number characters essentially. So since it's not, we have an A and a D in there, then it will turn false. So that's just an example of using those functions. Yeah. So again, it's not super important you know like each of these off by heart. I mean, as Anya said, you shouldn't be memorizing too much in this course. The only things you should know is like how to use these. She'll probably provide documentation for most of them, but again, it's just important that you understand how string methods work and act on strings. That's the important part. So if you remember anything from this, that's what you want to take away. We use functions not, I don't think so. I don't think you will need to, but yeah, you should just be using what she gives you in the documentation. Yeah. All right, and the last part. So for loops basically allow you to iterate through characters, right? You'll use them with other objects called lists later in this course, but for now they're just for going through the characters in a string and looking at each of them and basically doing operations character-wise. So I'm looking at the first character, the second character, third character. So can we switch case? Yeah. Yeah, so for example, just a simple example of using a for loop here, we have foo bar, you will do great. We have the collecting string, which is just an empty string. We have for char and foo bar, collecting string. You're gonna concatenate char with the, I'll also go over concatenation quickly because it is an important thing that I forgot to mention in these slides, but it will also be an important part of your midterm. So I will go over that too, don't worry. But basically this goes through each character in the foo bar string and adds an at next to it. And then you're adding it all to the collecting string, which is basically your string, which is basically, actually, this is wrong. It should be collecting string equals collecting string plus char plus at. So yeah, there should be a plus collecting string in here. I apologize for that. But yeah, essentially the idea is you're going through each of the characters in here and adding on to collecting string, the character and then the at symbol. And we have, yeah, we have this string essentially. And as I mentioned, there should be a collecting string plus char. Yeah, there should be a collecting string plus equals collecting string plus char plus at. This is useful, you know, if you want to add underscores to text or you want to parse certain parts of text. So I'm going to go over a few examples of this actually, because these are also really important. So, but first I'm going to go over something else. So string concatenation, which is also really important. So let's we have foo, which is equal to R2 D2. We have foo bar, which is just equal to happy, right? So what we can do is we can create a third string called foo, and we can add foo plus foo bar. And when we get foo, we see that we basically took these two strings and put them together. Now, it's important to note that string addition is not commutative. So if I did, for example, foo bar plus foo, I would get something different, right? I'd get happy R2D2. So it always goes in the order you add them together. Another operation that is valid on strings is multiplication. So we could have foo is equal to foo times 2, right? And that will give us R2D2, R2D2. So it's just basically adding foo to itself 2 times. What you cannot do is foo bar minus foo, right? That doesn't make much sense, right? Because subtraction is not well defined on strings because, well, first of all, there's nothing to subtract here from here, but even if we did, like, what part would we subtract, right? So it doesn't make much sense as an operation. Likewise, we also cannot divide strings. That doesn't make any sense either. So the two operations, valid operations that you can do on strings is addition and multiplication. But essentially, this is just concatenating 2 strings. You're just taking 2 strings. In this case, we have foo bar and foo, and you're putting them together, right? Like that. Does anyone have any questions about this? Or is this clear? Is this good? 2 people raised hands. Cosmo, you can go. Okay. Everyone can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Shinza, you can go with your question.
So say foo is equal to happy face and foo bar is happy, right? So if you do like happy face minus happy, would we get like face or would it still be an error?
No, it would still be an error. We can actually go over that. So we could have foo is equal to happy face. That will give an error because multiplication is not defined on strings. So if we have happy, we do foo is equal to foo minus foo bar. Oh, sorry, that was wrong. That variable doesn't exist. We'll try this. Right, so you'll get an error because again, subtraction is not defined on strings, namely because it's not well defined in most cases, so it doesn't really make much sense to include it as an operation, because the point of adding strings is just to concatenate them together, right? Multiplication is just repeat addition, so that's why that's included too, but we don't really have a sense in which we can subtract a string from another string, because if we had like, let's say we had, I don't know, foo, happy, happy face, right? And we had boo is equal to happy, right? Well, if we wanted to subtract boo from foo, right? Well, which happy do we get rid of? Do we get rid of the first one, the second one, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that makes sense.
yeah. So yeah, that's just a general idea of why that's not included. But yeah, I hope this is all clear. I hope this is all clear. But yeah, that's basically just the main idea. So what I wanted to do right now, since we're all familiar with string concatenation now, is perhaps go over an example of using for loops. So num of k. Okay, so we're going to make a program that counts the number of occurrences of the letter k in a string. So that'll return an integer, and we're going to say return number. That should be word. Return number of occurrences of k, not case sensitive, so we won't be considering this to be case sensitive. Of k, not case sensitive, in Word. I'm not going to go over the doing test cases right now because I do want to get right to coding this, but again, you should include 2 test cases like this, and then brackets, and then k to 0, and then just whatever your desired result is below there, right? Desired result. So so can I get this suggestion like from anyone in the chat? So for a for loop, right, what should we write? Char in Word, yes, correct. So it's for char in Word. Correct. Just like that. Okay. So actually we should probably include before we do that, we should do count equals 0. We should include a variable that counts the number of occurrences. So we should have an if statement here. Who would like to take a guess at what we should include in here? If char equals k. Yes. It should be important to note though that we should do if word dot lower, or not word, char dot lower equals k, right? Because it's not case sensitive, so we're not caring if this is in uppercase k or a lowercase k. We're going to count regardless, right? So we use the lower method on the character, right, which will make it lower. If it's uppercase, then it becomes lowercase, and we check just the lowercase version of it. Or if it's lowercase, then that doesn't matter, right? It's fine. And then we do count equals count plus 1. There is a more compact notation for this that you can use. I'm just using it here for understandability, just so we can see what we're doing. And then afterwards, we just return counts like that. Great. So let's try this out. See if our code works. Let's say foobar is equal to cake is cool, right? And we're going to include a uppercase k like that, and a lowercase k. So this should return 2, right? So let's try it. Let's try num of k foobar. And 2, as expected, right? Because we count k in here and this k. And we basically go through all the characters in the string. So yeah, that's an example, a simple example of how you would use a for loop. Does anyone have any questions? What does case sensitive mean? Case sensitive means we care about whether it's uppercase or lowercase. So if this was case sensitive, then we would just do if char equals k, right? But we don't care about whether it's low or not, so we just consider every character as a lowercase character, essentially. Right. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Is this clear to everyone? Or are we good? Good. Okay. I'm good. Okay. All right. So let's do another, just another one. Is in epic. So return true. We'll call this a bool. We'll do this a boolean. So we're going to do another example program. True if all characters in Word are in epic. So, all right. So we're going to start off with a for loop, just as we did before for char in Word. All right. Now, does anyone know what we should do here? Can we take a gander of what this if statement should be? Don't say if and only if. I think you're fine with just saying if. Yeah, okay, so yes, we could, Shangapi, we could do that, but that is a bit inefficient. As everyone's mentioned in the chat, if char in epic, the correct solution to this is if char not in epic, we return false. And then after that, we have the default return value of true. This should work, I believe. Char not. Yeah. So as Joseph mentioned, be careful using your nots, because again, it can get really ugly really fast. I think this should work though, but the idea is we're going through each character, right? Oh, and we should specify this as a string too. Almost missed that. That would not run otherwise. So let's save and let's see if this works. All right. So I don't know. Let's try PICEPC. Let's say foobar equals this, right? And let's try is in epic of foobar. True, right? Because every character in here is an epic. So let's try foobar equals cool, right? We're going to check is in epic again. Right, we'll check if cool is in here. It's false, obviously, because there are characters that are not in epic that are in this word. Right. So is everyone clear on this example too? This is another common use of for statements. Okay, I'm going to go over one more example, and this is a common one too. That's just good to understand. So
Hey, Alex.
Yeah.
Can you explain why you used not? Like if
Yes,
char not
yes.
in epic instead of just
Yeah, exactly. This is a bit subtle, but it's important. So the reason we're doing not in epic is we're going through the idea of this program is that we're going through the word, right? And we're looking at each character. If it matches with a character in epic, then we're good, right? Because okay, that satisfies the condition we're looking at. However, if it does not, if there's a character in here that's not in epic, right? So the not, what the not operator or the not, what the not word or operator does is it basically checks the inverse of our condition, right? So we're looking at if our char is not in the string, we're going to return false because clearly there's a character in our word that does not satisfy the condition we like, right? So the reason we're doing not instead of if char in epic, because well, if we did if char in epic, and we returned false, well, that would, our program obviously wouldn't work because we're returning false if the condition we like is true. If that's clear to everyone. What if you just flip the true and false? No, because, and the issue with that is, okay, let's say we did something like this, right?
Sorry, I just have a question for everybody that I want everybody to try and answer. Alex, if you can code right after the if statement, can you do an else statement that says return false? Like
Okay.
inside?
Yeah.
And I
so,
want everybody to kind of see
Mhm.
why we wouldn't want to do this.
yeah, though, great thinking. Yes. Mohammed, yes, go right ahead.
Actually, you could do the else, and I'll ask after that. Oh wait, sorry. Okay. Actually, I did raise my hand to suggest something to do like a question I had. I'm not answering the question that Katrina just asked. My
Okay.
bad.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So does anyone? Yeah. So to what Katrina just said, does anyone have an idea of why you can't just do an else statement here and just return false? It's a bit.
Yeah. So because the function returns in one iteration, it'll only run once exactly. So if we switch the true and false statements, like we had if char in epic return true, and then we had that return false on the outside of that for loop, what would return, like, let's say we had epic and a lot of C's. What would happen after the first iteration in this for loop? Exactly. Then that would only check the first letter. And that's not what our description says. Our description says we want to return true if all the characters in the word are in epic. And yeah, we do need actual quotation marks around epic. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah.
But exactly, it's exactly the same as the example that Anya gave in lecture as fluffy.
Right.
We're just using the word epic instead, just to kind of change it up a bit. But yeah, if we said if char in epic and we return true right away, then it would only check the first character. So that's why we have to say if char not in epic. So the first instance of any character in the word that isn't in epic, that will return false because not all of the characters are in the word epic. And then at the end, we would want to return true because we've checked through all of the characters and now we know for sure that works.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Fantastic explanation. So yes, essentially the idea is that we want to go through all the characters. If we just return true for the first character, well, that's not what our function's supposed to do, right? So yeah, that's the main idea. When is return false unnecessary? That depends on the context of your program. I think here it's definitely necessary, but again, it would depend on, what the context of your code is. Yes, we have 3 people who have questions, so I want to get to those. So Mohammed, if you have a question.
Actually, yes, I do.
Yeah.
So basically, I have a question. Let's say I was given a case that I should see if the vowels A, E, I, O, U exist in the word.
Yeah.
But not all of the characters, like only if they exist. How will my code look like?
Okay, yeah. So if I was looking for a single instance of a single instance of a vowel, right?
No, not one, but all of them. Or let's say for this instance, epic world.
Yeah. Okay.
So epic does come here, so it should give me true, but word or whatsoever is not.
Yeah. So word would give you false in this instance because not all the characters in word are in epic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So essentially what this is doing actually is it's looking at your character and seeing if all the characters are either E, P, I, or C, essentially. That's what it does.
Yes, I know, but I'm asking what if I want to write a code like let's see, does epic exist in a word, for instance?
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah, I don't want it to check like for the other letters. Like since epic exists, I want it to stop there and give me true, not continue.
Okay, so you're saying let's say I have like something like epic world, right? And you want to see if epic's like the word epic is in there.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to
Okay.
check, but while using the for char, I don't want to check the length of that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you can always just do I assume you want to use the for loop, but you can just do this epic in, for example, epic world, or you could do like word or epic in word. Obviously, I think you want to do the for loop solution. So what I would do is go through each char in the word, and I mean that would be a bit more of a complicated program because we would need to like check, okay, we have an instance of E, we have an instance of P afterwards. But again, if you want to check if a word's in another word, the simpler solution is just to say, if you could just write if epic in like that. That works. Or word, not string word, just like right like that.
That would
Like-
only check if epic, like the string epic, is
Yeah.
like a subclass, and it would only return a bool. It actually wouldn't return the number of times that epic
Oh,
appears
he
in.
wants the number of times. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that would.
Oh, Alex, sorry, just
Yeah.
a quick tangent, just because I'm conscious of the time, it's 8:01 p.m.
Yeah.
Can you send me your email on Discord? I'm going to switch over
Yes.
the slides permissions, and then I'll
Yeah.
send the link in here for people who actually have to go.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop sharing right now. Sorry. Okay. Give me a second.
We'll go back to the questions. Sorry, everybody. I just want to make sure that you guys have access to the slides if you want for like later studying or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Is this your Gmail, Alex?
My Gmail?
Yeah.
No, that is my school email.
Like, would
I
that
sent-
work for, I guess, on this slide?
Oh, you mean my Gmail? Okay. Yeah, give me 1 second. Apologies.
Daniel, I believe that is the last slide. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you went over the for loops, right, Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah, that's the end of the slides. We're just going over questions, and we'll send the link for the slides in the chat just once we're finished.
Yeah, just let me send it over to you. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, we can go over dot find. I think that's a bit confusing to some.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. Alex,
Dot
you
find.
are, yeah, you're an editor
Yeah.
now.
Let me share my screen again. So yeah, find is another important one. So yeah, let's go over that. So, all right, let's say we have a character, we'll call it foo bar. Everyone can see this, right? Yeah. Let's call it think, right?
Yeah. I just
And-
shared the link in the chat as well.
I want to find, okay, what's the first occurrence of K, the character K in this. So what I can do is I can use the find method on foobar and I can insert K. And what find will give you is it will give you an integer, right? So that's useful because then you can locate the index of it and then you can access it. But one thing to keep in mind is you can't do foobar find. Let's say I had foobar equals to AMA CSS. And I want to find the second occurrence of A, right? So I could do foobar dot find A. Right, and that will give me the first occurrence, but that's not really helpful to me. I want this A, right? Now, what a naive solution to this would be foobar dot find A dot find But can anyone point out what this will give us? Yep, Joseph.
It'll return an error because what you're essentially is basically the first dot find returns a number, and then you're telling it to use the string method on an integer, which doesn't make sense.
Correct, absolutely, right? That gives us an error because we're first of all, we're doing foobar and we're finding the first index of A, but then we're running the find method on what, because remember, Python evaluates from left to right. So then we're going to be evaluating the find method on integer, but it's not defined for integers. So that obviously will not work. But a way we can do this, or a way we can sort of work around this, is we can do the find method, I believe, takes in another optional argument, right? Do
Yeah, it
foobar.
takes in start and end. Those are the
Yes.
optional arguments.
Yeah, so to work around this, we can just start at the instance of the first A, and we can do foobar dot find A, and then we can do foobar dot find. That should work, right? Am I? Yep. Some arguments. Why is it doing that? So give me a sec. That should be. Okay, yeah, okay. Then we can do foobar dot find A, right? And this should give us the index of the, oh, sorry, that isn't there. Okay.
You need to add one more because it'll include that as well.
Right, yes, thank you. That was good, right? So we could do foobar find A, then foobar dot find A plus 1, right? And that will, again, this finds the first instance of the character, right? So that's at 0, that's at the start of the string. And then we're going to add 1 to it, right? Because we want to like not include that in our second search. And then what this does is it looks for A starting at the index of where you found the first A. And this will give us 2, which again is the index of our second A, which is what we want. So is that clear to everyone? Yeah, this is actually, as someone mentioned in the chat, this is technically, I think this is an example of recursion because we're calling, don't worry about recursion, by the way, it's not relevant right now, but if for anyone's curiosity, we're doing a method call inside of a method call, right? So you'll cover stuff like recursion in 848, but that's just an example of it. We're gonna see my A1 mark. I'm not sure, you'll have to email Anya about that. But yeah, it should be on Marcus, like she said. Yeah, so the index we're starting at for the search is wherever we found the first occurrence of the character we want, and then we add 1 because we don't want to be starting at here because it's inclusive of this. So we're just going to be starting from here, and we're already there, so it's just going to return 0 again. But if we start at +1, then we know, okay, we're starting this, and then all the other occurrences past that, which will give us our second A, if that's clear to everyone. So is that good with everyone?
I think Shinza has a question.
Oh,
But
yeah,
take
sorry,
care,
I apologize.
everybody who's finished.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
this is the
go
end of our
right ahead.
presentation.
Yeah, we're just going to answer some questions right now in case anyone has any. So,
Take care,
Shinza.
guys.
Hello.
You know the epic example we did?
Yeah.
Would that ignore the case? Like, would that ignore like if it's uppercase or lowercase?
Yes, it would, because note for our epic example, what we did is we did char dot lower is equal to k. So what the lower method does to characters in strings, it just makes them lowercase, right? So if char in this case was an uppercase k, it just becomes a lowercase k. So we're evaluating it as if it was a lowercase k. So yes, it would not matter if it was uppercase or lowercase in our epic example.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. Ishka.
Hi, yeah, like, can you show me the code? Like, if we are asked a question, like to return true only if the string contains all the vowels, like the consonants fine.
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. So we can
Yeah.
actually go over an example of that. This is another common example. Def is all. So if it contains, if it's all vowels or if it contains a vowel.
If it contains the vowels, like other letters are okay, but it should
Okay,
contain all
yeah.
the vowels, yeah.
Okay, yes, okay, awesome. Great. So okay, I can think of a. Let me think here. This might be a little more complicated to write, but I could probably do an example on the spot right now. So we could do for char in Word, or not is all vowels, contains all vowels. That would be a better name. Contains all vowels. So first we have a for loop, right? And I might have 5 variables. So I'll just call this A, I'll set this to 0. Say I, set to 0. This is a little bit of a messy example, but we'll set that to 0 and we'll set U to 0. So what we could do is if char is do you want if it's lowercase, or do you care if it's lowercase or uppercase, or no?
No, regardless of no lowercase or uppercase.
Okay, great. Okay, so we could do if char dot lower is equal to A, then we could set 8 equal 1, and then we could just basically copy that essentially for all of them. This is a bit of a more messy example, but
Yeah, this is because we don't have a list.
yeah.
We haven't gone over lists yet. Sorry?
Here what I thought of, like how to go with this. Like I thought we can collect all the vowels in the empty string and then compare it like the vowels in A, E, I, O, U. And if
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
you can do a for loop. Yeah, that's ways. Yeah.
I thought it's an inefficient way, so
yeah. Okay, yeah, that's perfect actually.
You can do a second for loop, yeah.
Right, yes. So you could do for char in Word. We could have another string, we'll just call it foobar, we'll set it to equal empty, and we'll say if char dot lower in A, E, I, O, U, right? Yeah. Then we would do just foobar equals foobar plus char. That's correct, right? That's what we want. And then we have the second for loop for char in foobar. Sorry, how? Wait.
yeah, and then you can compare foobar, like it does all the vowels, and then outside for loop you can write like return foobar in A, E, I, O, U. So if any of the vowel is missing, it would return false, right? I guess we do not need to use the another for loop.
Right. So what you're saying is doing this, right? Return.
Yeah, foobar
in. Yes. The only problem with this is that foobar might not be in the same order as A, I, O, U. So let's say if we have like I don't know, we have, it's not the correct name for comments. It should be this, right? Yeah. So let's say we have foobar is equal to EI, right? So we get, let's well, actually, that would return false anyways. But let's say we have foobar is equal to IEAUO, right? Well, if we check this, well, it's going to say false because we don't have that specific string in that order within the other string, right? So I think I could try this actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Katrina, do you know if there's another approach we could do this using for loops?
Sorry, for what?
For this, because if we just like look at foobars in a EIOU, we're gonna run into the problem of it might not be in like the correct order, right?
Wait, so you mean what are you so return true if all, like, what's the oh, if they all contain vowels?
Yeah, if all the vowels like so the idea is that we're trying to see if every single vowel occurs at least once in the word.
In the order?
Not in order, it doesn't matter. Like if just all 5 of them occur at least once.
Ooh, that is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a more tricky problem. I don't think she'll put anything like that on the midterm
No.
because that's more of a lists problem, and I don't think we went over lists yet. I think with lists this would be a lot easier because you could just add to the list if it's not like in there already, but that's a more of a list problem. So
Vincent has a good solution with the count.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually a short form, the way that he's done it here, Vincent. So return word.count A and E, I, O, and U. So essentially, that is an expression. I know it doesn't look like one, but word.count A, if it's greater than 0, then it counts as true. It will return true if you're trying to evaluate it. And if it returns 0, then it'll be false. So that is one way to do it quickly.
Yeah, so you could just, what he's saying basically is you could do, or that should be E. You could do like this, for example, word.count, right? It's greater than or equal to word.count.
Oh, you don't have to do plus.
Yeah. Right, it's and, sorry, that was my mistake.
You could switch it though and say like if it's greater or equal to 5.
5. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, but it might contain like, oh no,
oh, that's true.
Yeah, it might contain like more than one. Like it might contain 5 E's, but none of the.
Yeah, that's true.
I.
You would want to make sure if each and every one of them, there's at least one.
Yeah. That shouldn't be going off. I think how you usually do this is.
You do them in brackets. No, she doesn't want you to do the slashes.
Yeah, don't do that.
May I just recommend you, like, before you do the word.count, just make them all lowercase before?
Yeah, definitely. So it should be word.lower.
So just do like word equals word.lower.
Right.
And then it'll automatically.
Word.lower. Yep, like that. Good. And okay, this is kind of
going.
going
In brackets. You can just hit enter.
Okay, so yeah, just like that, right? And then we just close bracket. Okay. Oh, sorry. And word.counts.
It's much easier in like a list.
Yeah.
The organization.
This should work, right? And as Katrina mentioned, this doesn't look like a valid expression, but actually is, right? So it counts 0 for all of these, then it will return false, right? But if it's at least 1 for all of them, then it will return true. We can try to run this and we can see that it will work. We'll just try it for something simple. We'll call foobar equals AEIOAISSSU. We'll try that. Oh, you're right. I didn't use the correct brackets for that. Apologies. AEIOSSSU. Right. And then we're going to run contains all vowels on this. On foobar. Okay, yeah. So this will return. So okay, yeah. So this will return 1. Basically because we're looking at count, which returns integers. And only if so basically it will return an integer because we're looking at count, which is a method that returns an integer. So it's only going to return 1 if all of these evaluate to 1, basically. So we could try a example that doesn't work. We could try hello, right? We could check contains all vowels. Hello. Oh, right. No, I should have put foobar. Contains all vowels. Foobar. Right, that's 0. So that's going to give us 0, which is binary equivalent to false.
Yeah, thank you so much. This makes sense.
Yeah, no problem. Great. Sorry, I know a lot of other people have questions, so I didn't get to you until now. Daniel, you can ask.
Can you go over overlapping occurrences in Python?
Overlapping occurrences. Overlapping occurrences.
What do you mean by overlapping?
Like, I think he was using the dot count between like a certain index. If like.
Oh, you mean the find function? Like
Is it find?
Yeah, it was like foobar dot
Find a and then find a, but past this index of the first
yeah.
int.
So okay, actually it might be better to start with a different string. Let's say we have foobar is equal to good. I'll add no, or no, we'll just add an O in there. Okay. All right. You should also use the proper quotation marks. You should use these when you're using strings and these when you're using characters. But for now, we'll just do that. So let's say we want to find the second occurrence or the second occurrence of O in here, right? Well, if we do foobar to find just O, just the character O, we're gonna get 1, like right, which is the first occurrence of O. But that's not what we want, right? Right, we're talking about there might be like multiple occurrences of O in here, and we want the second one. So the find function, right? We can put in a string, but we can also specify 2 other things, which are basically the slice of the string we want to look at. So let's say I want to look at the first occurrence of O from index 5 onwards. So I would type 5. Well, let's say I don't want to look at this part. So I could do index 5 to 8, right? So we basically just specify a slice here, right? And this works like regular string slicing. So a nice trick we can do if we want to find the second occurrence is we can do foobar.find, we can do O, and then we can just do foobar.find O plus 1, right? And that will give us the second occurrence. So that's 0, 1, 2, because we're going into this find function. Okay, we're looking for the character O, and okay, we're going to do it starting from this index, right? Now we know that the first occurrence of O is at index 1, right? But we don't want to include 1 in our search, right? Because if we did include 1, then we'd be including the first index again, which again, we don't want. So we add 1 to it to make sure we're at least at the second occurrence of it. And then, okay, it finds this occurrence because this is the second occurrence of O, or the first occurrence of O, given this slice, right?
All right, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Yeah, as Vincent said, right? You have those 3 things you're doing, and then you're combining them all together in one call, basically.
I'm gonna pause or stop the recording. And Alex, if you want to do the same, because I think this is just extra questions right now.